The news rippled through the digital world like a shockwave, each headline a fresh stab of grief. Barbie Hsu, the luminous star of Meteor Garden, an icon whose effervescence had graced screens and warmed hearts for decades, was gone. At 48, a vibrant life was extinguished by influenza, a common ailment that, in her case, had spiraled into a fatal tempest. As tributes poured in, painting a portrait of a beloved actress, a devoted mother, and a cherished friend, a quieter, more unsettling narrative began to form in the spaces between the lines, a story of whispers unheard, of signals dismissed. This is the tragic story of Barbie Hsu, a fictionalized account of a star who, in the whirlwind of her life, may have overlooked the 7 crucial warning signs her body desperately tried to send before the final curtain call. I still remember the first time I watched Meteor Garden. Barbie Hsu lit up the screen like a supernova. Her eyes held 1,000 stories, and her smile had the power to heal broken hearts. She wasn't just an actress, she was an icon. A symbol of strength, grace, and beauty. But today, we remember her not just for the role she played, but for the one role she tragically couldn't escape, being human. Barbie Hsu, at just 48 years old, was taken from us by something many of us overlook, a seasonal illness. Influenza.
Right.
Yes, the flu. A name so ordinary, it hides its deadly fangs in plain sight.
Agora mostro.
How could someone so strong, so vibrant, fall victim to something so common? This is the tragic story of Barbie Hsu. A tale not just of loss, but of 7 silent warnings her body gave her, each one ignored, dismissed, and ultimately, fatal. The unfolding silence, a prelude to tragedy. Life for Barbie Hsu, even after stepping back slightly from the relentless glare of the spotlight, was a symphony of commitments. Family, personal projects, the lingering demands of a celebrated career, it was a pace that left little room for stillness. It was amidst this familiar rhythm that the first, almost imperceptible, warning sign emerged. Sign number 1, the unshakable fatigue. It began as a persistent weariness, a bone-deep tiredness that no amount of sleep seemed to cure. Barbie, a woman renowned for her energy, initially brushed it off. Just a bit run down, she'd tell her concerned sister, Dee, with a wave of her hand. We've all been so busy with the Lunar New Year plans, the trip to Japan, it's bound to catch up. She'd pour an extra strong coffee, plaster on her radiant smile, and push through. The fatigue, however, clung to her like a shadow, a silent weight on her usually buoyant spirit. It was the kind of exhaustion that felt different, heavier than the usual end-of-day tiredness. But in a life lived at full throttle, it was easy to normalize, to categorize it as just another consequence of a life well lived. Sign number 2, the lingering cough. Soon after the fatigue settled in, a cough began, a dry, ticklish irritation at first. It's just this winter air, she'd muse, sipping on honey lemon tea. But the cough didn't yield to home remedies. It deepened, becoming a nagging, chesty presence that punctuated her sentences and disturbed her sleep. Her children would look at her with wide, concerned eyes when a fit of coughing would seize her. "Mommy's fine, just a little tickle," she'd reassure them, her voice slightly hoarse. Friends suggested a doctor's visit, but appointments were hard to schedule, and it felt like such a common, almost trivial complaint. "It's just a cold," she insisted, perhaps even to herself. "It'll pass." Sign number 3, the dance of fever. Then came the fevers, not raging infernos, but insidious, low-grade waves of heat that would leave her feeling flushed and weak. An over-the-counter pain reliever would bring temporary relief, lulling her into a false sense of security. She'd feel better for a few hours, enough to convince herself it was nothing serious. Probably just fighting off that bug everyone seems to have, she'd reason. The thermometer became a casual acquaintance rather than an alarm. The recurring nature of the fever, its stubborn refusal to fully retreat, was a clear signal, but one that was muffled by the demands of her schedule and the desire not to cause a fuss. The planned family trip to Japan for the Lunar New Year loomed, a beacon of joy and relaxation. The thought of disappointing her children, of disrupting cherished family traditions, was unbearable. These symptoms, she convinced herself, were minor inconveniences, hurdles to be overcome with willpower and a little bit of rest when she could snatch it. The escalation, when whispers become shouts. As the departure date for Japan drew nearer, Barbie's body began to send more urgent, more desperate signals. The whispers were becoming shouts, yet they seemed to echo in a chamber of her own making, where the will to carry on drowned out the pleas for help. Sign number 4, the stolen breath. A new, more alarming symptom surfaced, shortness of breath. Walking up a flight of stairs, something she usually did without a second thought, now left her winded, her heart hammering against her ribs. Playing with her children in the park, a simple joy, became an effort. "I must be really out of shape," she'd tell her husband, Koo Jun-yup, with a self-deprecating laugh, trying to make light of the tightness in her chest. The thought that this could be connected to the persistent cough and fatigue didn't fully crystallize, or perhaps, was actively pushed away. It was easier to attribute it to a lack of recent exercise than to a brewing storm within her lungs. Sign number 5, the aches that screamed. The general malaise was now accompanied by body aches that were far beyond the usual. Her muscles felt heavy, her joints tender. It wasn't the satisfying ache of a good workout, it was a deep, pervasive soreness that made every movement a conscious effort. "This flu season is brutal," she remarked to a friend over the phone, her voice laced with a weariness she couldn't entirely hide. She drew warm baths, took more painkillers, and tried to stretch away the discomfort, all the while the underlying infection was tightening its grip. The preparations for Japan continued. Suitcases were packed, itineraries finalized. Barbie, fueled by a potent cocktail of maternal love, professional obligation, and perhaps a touch of denial, pushed onward. The joy of the upcoming trip became a shield against the mounting evidence that something was seriously wrong. The final warnings, a desperate plea. In Japan, surrounded by the festive cheer of the new year, Barbie's body issued its final, most desperate warnings. Sign number 6, the fading appetite. Food, once a source of pleasure and conviviality, became unappealing. Her appetite dwindled, and even her favorite dishes tasted bland. Nausea would sometimes wash over her, leaving her feeling weak and queasy. "It must be the travel, or maybe something I ate," she'd say, pushing food around her plate. Her family noticed, their concern growing with each uneaten meal, but Barbie would always have a ready excuse, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The loss of appetite was a significant red flag, indicating her body was diverting all its resources to fight an overwhelming battle, but it was misinterpreted, lost in the shuffle of a holiday abroad. Sign number 7, the clouding of clarity. The most insidious sign, perhaps, was the mental fog that began to settle over her. Her usually sharp mind felt dull, her thoughts muddled. She found herself easily confused, forgetting small details, her concentration wavering. This brain fog, coupled with episodes of dizziness, was terrifying, but also easy to dismiss as a consequence of all the other symptoms, the fatigue, the lack of sleep due to the cough, the general unwellness. She attributed it to being overwhelmed and exhausted from the trip and the illness she still believed was just a bad flu. She didn't realize it was a sign that the infection was potentially affecting her systemically, that the battle was nearing a critical stage. The unanswered question. The vibrant streets of Tokyo, meant to be a backdrop for joyful family memories, instead became the silent witness to Barbie Hsu's final struggle. The influenza, unheeded in its earlier, more subtle manifestations, had progressed to severe pneumonia. By the time the severity was undeniable, by the time she was rushed to the hospital, the infection had wrought devastating damage. The question that hangs heavy in the air, the one that echoes in the hearts of her millions of fans, is a haunting what if? What if the initial fatigue had been investigated rather than endured? What if the persistent cough had led to a doctor's visit sooner? What if the recurring fevers hadn't been so easily dismissed? What if the 7 warning signs, each a desperate plea from her own body, had been met not with resilience, but with receptiveness and urgent care? These are questions with no answers, only the profound sorrow of a life lost too soon. Barbie Hsu's story, in this fictionalized telling, becomes more than just the loss of a beloved celebrity. It transforms into a poignant, tragic allegory. It speaks to the pressures many face, the need to be strong, to keep going, to not let others down, sometimes at the expense of our own well-being. The legacy of Barbie Hsu is etched in the annals of Asian entertainment, a testament to her talent, her beauty, and her spirit. Her passing leaves a void that cannot be filled. But perhaps, from this immense sorrow, a crucial lesson can be embraced. Our bodies communicate with us constantly, in whispers and sometimes in shouts. The demands of life, the fear of seeming weak, or simply the habit of pushing through discomfort can lead us to ignore these vital messages. Barbie Hsu's tragic, fictionalized journey through those 7 ignored signs serves as a stark reminder: listen to your body. Acknowledge persistent, unusual fatigue. It's not always just being tired. Don't dismiss a cough that lingers or worsens. It could be more than a common cold. Pay attention to recurring fevers, even if they are low-grade. Unexplained shortness of breath is always a reason to seek medical advice. Severe or unusual body aches warrant investigation. A significant loss of appetite or persistent nausea shouldn't be ignored. Mental fog or dizziness can be indicators of a serious underlying issue. These are not just symptoms, they are signals. In honoring the memory of stars like Barbie Hsu, and in cherishing our own lives and the lives of those we love, let us make a collective vow to listen more intently, to act more decisively when our bodies speak. Let her story, though tinged with the sadness of what might have been, inspire a renewed commitment to our health, ensuring that the whispers of warning do not go unheard until they become the silence of tragedy. May we all learn to prioritize the incredible gift of health, for ourselves and for those who hold us dear.